Hey everybody, Don here again, and welcome back to Ragged Edge Lure Works. So I just got this package in the mail and I'm pretty excited. We're going to do something a little different. My friend and fellow kayak angler at the Granite State Kayak Anglers, Russ Beeson, recently reached out and asked any of his lure painting buddies if they were up for a challenge of painting this bait in a perch pattern. And I reached out and said, you know, I've never done a jointed bait before, but I am up for the challenge if you want to give me a shot. So he sent this over, and it's a really cool bait. I'm a little nervous because I know this thing cost a bunch of money, but it's got a really nice silicone tail on it. It's got these really cool eyes, but one of them is missing. I looked in the package, and it's not in the package, so I gotta think I'm just gonna have to use some different kind of eyes, and they won't have that little pointy part to it, but we'll see. I'll reach out to Russ. So anyways, I'm gonna paint this in my perch pattern and give it a go. And then I've got some ideas for how I'm gonna protect the joints. So you wanna stay tuned for that as well. Stick around. All right, well, because this bait is jointed and I can't seem to get it to sit still, I'm going to be painting this in several different phases. I'm going to paint one side. I don't want to get too much paint on the metal, so we're going to go kind of light there. But I've got the bill and the tail taped up. I'm going to prime this. But I'm going to reduce this white down some. See if that helps in the clogging of my airbrushes. All right, here we go. Put just a little bit of that in there. See if it's spraying, and it is spraying. You can see this bait has been reclaimed. All right, I'm going to dry that. I think this is going to take several coats of paint to cover it up. Well, I missed a few spots, so I'm hanging this thing now. And just filling in some of those areas that I missed. I don't know if this is the way I'm going to paint it or not, just because it moves around a little bit too much, but I think I've got all the areas I missed now with a nice coat of primer. All right, now I've got this bait hanging upside down. I'm just going to paint the bottom of it with pearlized white, and I'm also going to reduce this down. This is pearl white, and I'm going to put a little bit of this 4011 reducer in there as well. So probably waste a little more paint than I'm wanting to, because it's not a very big part, but I want to make sure the gun is shooting good. And these pearl paints, they clog up the guns more than anything. I'm going to show you guys in a future video how I clean my guns. And then if you guys got any pointers, I'm more than happy. All right, we're spraying. Really, just the belly of this is going to be pearl white. That ought to be enough. All right, so here we have this bait is been primed, and the belly has been coated in pearl white. Like I said, this is for my buddy Russ over at Beast Mode Baits. So next up is going to be pearlized copper, which is really, like I've said a dozen times, more of a gold than a copper. Hang tight. Mixing up the pearlized copper with some 4011 reducer. And I'm going to do this bait like half at a time, and then maybe the top and the bottom will be separate as well. Let's add just a little more reducer. Looks a lot thinner than what I've been doing. Yeah, here we go. All right. All right. Well, I had to take a little break and clean out the gun. Even though I've been reducing this paint, it was still clogging up on me. So I got one side done. Now I'm going to put in a whole lot more reducer and try to get this other side done. And then we'll give it a good dry. And I think I need more reducer. I think I might have to do multiple coats because I've got this thinned out so much. All right, next up, moss green, detail moss green. We're going to thin this too. I'm going to be thinning all my paints from here on, even though I'm still getting a bunch of clogs. Mix this up. All right, here we go. We're doing this from a distance. Kind of got a weird orange peely look to it. Let's dry that. Flip it over. Just get a little bit on the back. Let's try that. Yeah, looking better now. All right, next up is putting some perch bars on this thing with sepia. And I'm just going to use a sponge and do a little dipping. So let's see, let's start here. Just a couple of spots on the gills. Flip it over and do the other side. All right. Here we go, side 2. There we go. Darken up that back and then blend it in just a little bit. Don't want to obliterate the green. Just want to blend in those bars. Let's dry it. Heat set. All right, so before I painted this, I made these little stencils so that I can paint the fins with a little pearl tangerine. And just going to put a tad of this in the gun. Just kind of a light coat, because that's all I want is on that fin, is just a little light coat. Let's try it. Yeah, that's all I wanted, was a little bit of orange on the fin. Let's do this other side. Now, I'm going to put a little bit under the chin. A little bit on the tail. And I think we're done. Well, here we are, ready for eyeballs and then clear coat. But I had to order eyeballs, so we'll finish this up when those come in. All right, well, I got the eyeballs in this thing, and now for the nerve-wracking part. I got to epoxy this thing without getting epoxy in the joints. Now, I've got this thing attached to these. I tried sticking some toothpicks in there, and that didn't really work. So what I'm going to do is mix up my epoxy and just go as lightly as I can just in this joint area, and then I'll flip it over and I'll do the same on the other side, trying not to get any on the metal. And then once that's dried, I'll epoxy the rest of the bait. So wish me luck. This is the nerve-wracking part. All right, here we go. Super light coat of epoxy in the joint area. And just trying not to get any on the metal, but trying to cover up as much of the painted area as I can, because if I don't, this is a water-based paint and it will come off. So I'm hoping keep the epoxy off of the metal. I'm going to come back in when I do the main part of the body, if all is well. And give it a little bit of a second coat. All right, well, as you can see, I've got this thing on the rotisserie, and I've got them spread out so the joints aren't touching. I put a counterweight on the other side of the rotisserie, just so this thing wouldn't flop as it does sometimes when there's too much weight on one side. And that seems to be working fine. So I'm hoping, looks like I might have a little contact area right there. Oh, I gotta do something about that. Okay, so I've got everything separated. It should be good. Let's see if it continues to have a gap. I need a little gap between all the joints. And I do. Now I have a total gap between all those joint areas. Phew, well, I'm glad I checked that. Well, here it is. Here's the finished product on this giant swim bait that I painted up for my buddy Russ over at Beast Mode Baits. I gotta tell you, this was really tough. Not from the painting aspect. The painting aspect of it went really easy. It was the clear coat that gave me fits. There are 3 coats of epoxy on this thing, and there were areas where the epoxy just would not take. So I just had to keep going back and forth on it. Areas where I was worried the most are on these joints, because I didn't want to get epoxy on the metal and affect the action, but it just didn't want to seem to take paint there. And I was worried that if I didn't get at least a good coat on there, the paint would come off when he's fishing. So hopefully this thing meets Russ's requirements and works for him, and hopefully he catches some big fish, just not in a tournament when you're fishing against each other. Russ, thanks for giving me the opportunity to paint this thing for you. I hope it meets your expectations, and thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Peace.